They say China's growth trajectory is a miracle in itself. I consider myself fortunate that in 2017, I decided to hop onto this miraculous caravan. Why China? Perhaps I was too captivated by the country after reading Edgar Snow's Red Star over China when I was young. Or maybe I found the image of the Great Wall hung next to my study desk particularly intriguing when I was a kid. Or maybe the grandeur and glamour of the 2008 Beijing Olympics left a lasting impression.
You just mentioned the Great Wall, and here we are on the Great Wall. How do you feel?
It's a surreal experience for me every time I visit the Great Wall of China. It embodies so much of what China was and remains. Just take a moment and look around and think about the mammoth efforts that were required to build the Great Wall. It reflects the Chinese people's unity, commitment, and determination to safeguard their home and protect their country. I think that everyone visiting China must have this place on their bucket list. Before I came to China, whatever I knew about the country was from a secondary perspective, say largely through the prism of the Western press. But it wasn't until I came to this country I realized how little I understood about China. There are numerous facets of this country that never make it to the news in the West. Without being offensive, I would like to say that there is a constant push in the Western press to portray China in a negative light. There aren't many human interest stories or chronicles of how lives have been transformed in China as a result of the government's people-centered development approach. There's very little discussion about how meeting the Chinese people's aspiration for better life has been the goal of the Communist Party of China. Don't forget, China has undergone 3 industrial revolutions that took the West more than 200 years in just a few decades and seen its economy leap on to become the second largest in the world. So now that I have lived in this country and experienced China firsthand, I feel it's my responsibility to convey the real China story and bust misconceptions. I would also suggest people to travel around and visit the country first before forming any opinions.
Among other things, what has impressed you the most during your time in China?
If I were to answer your question in one sentence, I would say people, leader, and policies. I believe a nation's geographical boundaries may define it, but what makes a country are its people and the leaders who govern them. As someone who has extensively traveled internationally, I think I'm qualified enough to vouch that Chinese people are the nicest and the kindest in the world. I would like to share an anecdote with you. During the initial stage of the COVID-19 outbreak, like everyone else, I was also in a state of fear and panic. One evening, the manager of my residential community and a volunteer came over to check on me with a bag of fruits. They said that they're really concerned about my well-being and attempted to reassure me as they thought I was a foreigner who may not have the idea what was going around. We did not speak each other's language, and the entire conversation was carried out using a translation app. But I think sometimes heart-to-heart communication is sufficient. I have had countless encounters where the warmth and hospitality of the Chinese people have stood out. Being a media professional also gives me an added advantage. I can see firsthand the stories of the people from the grassroots, and I'm privy to the wonderful changes that have occurred in their lives. I can see clearly that the development of the people is at the core of China's governance. Be it boosting economic growth, implementing reforms, creating jobs, improving education, promoting green development, or policies involving elderly and childcare. As I have witnessed over the years, Chinese leaders attach great importance to the well-being, interest, and happiness of the people, and remarkable results have been delivered. I actually want to show you a photo. This was taken during my initial days in China when I visited a remote mountainous hamlet in central China's Hunan province. I was astounded to see the infrastructure and technological proficiency of the locals. The place was well connected to the county seat through concrete smooth roads. People, some even in their 60s and 70s, were using live streaming medium to showcase their culture to the outside world and sell their locally made traditional costumes, jewelries, and other items and earn extra income. This is absolutely mind-boggling for me because I cannot imagine my grandmother to use live streaming medium or even the internet. A lot of people have heard of China's monumental achievement in eradicating absolute poverty. Nearly 100 million impoverished residents have been lifted out of poverty since 2012. But I have seen these transformations by myself. Today, efforts are pivoted to revitalize rural areas and make sure that no one would slip back into the clutches of destitution ever again. I think China's development trajectory has lessons for the rest of the developing nations.
Is living in China different from your previous experiences of living in other countries?
That's a very good question, and this leads me to another striking aspect of China that I want to talk about. How technology has developed at a rapid pace and contributed to the improvement of people's lives in China. And I can give you many examples. One is 5G development. Many countries, including my own India, are still in the very infancy of 5G development. But here in China, there are over 1.96 million 5G base stations, and lightning-fast 5G internet is part of my daily life. Another would be the astounding level of internet penetration. Reportedly, the internet penetration rate in China is 74.4%. I speak very limited Chinese, but that's barely caused me any inconvenience. Everything is possible at the touch of a finger, thanks to internet and technology. From everyday interactions to hospital visits and shopping. Mobile payment is also omnipresent. This actually reminds me of a very funny incident. During my last visit to India, I almost got into trouble more than once because I forgot to carry my wallet. Once I took a cab, and upon arriving at my destination, I started walking out straight away, thinking that I had made the payment online. It was only when the driver called me out I realized I have to pay in cash. You are so accustomed to the convenience afforded by technological advancement in China that it is not until you travel outside the country that you realize that how far behind the rest of the world is. I believe technology and innovation will play a key role in China's modernization drive as the country embarks on a new journey to fully build itself a modern socialist country. From my experience, I can say that China's development path has taken a holistic approach, featuring innovative, coordinated, green, open, and shared development. And going ahead, we can see China deliver more tangible benefits to its people, continue to safeguard world peace, and contribute to global development. I think China's past accomplishments provide sufficient assurance for its bright and promising future.